Because if you don't listen when they're young to the things that matter to them, why would they come to you when they're older with things that matter to them?
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So, Dr. Kathy, Terry Peters wrote recently in Business Insider about the dating years that she's walking through with her kids. She writes, quote, "Today, I have a 16-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter, both of whom have been in relationships and gone on dates. To my surprise, the dating years have been a joy and have actually brought me closer than ever to my kids," end quote. Dr. Kathy, I wanted to talk about this a little bit just because I think we should talk about dark times. And for some parents, this is really a dark place. We don't know what lies around the next corner. And that's really where I feel like I am right now because we have 3 kids in this stage right now. And I can say it's kind of fun. It's kind of exciting. It's really an adventure. You don't know what's going to happen the next day because, hormones change and ideas change. And all of a sudden they want to, become something different in their life. And man, that person's just not going to fit it. It took a lot of work to kind of get to this place where our kids will talk with us about these different realities, the crushes, the romance, who they might like to marry, if they want to get married. I just think it's fun and exciting, but also deathly scary at the same time. What advice would you have for us as parents? Should we pursue like this type of a relationship with our kids where they share these deep, intimate things with us? I think I know the answer to that. But I think sometimes as parents, we also want to say there's also, a place where they can kind of build their own muscles for this and kind of have some discussion and work through some of it. Or should we be the ones that are really involved in their lives? And how do we kind of set that up? What should our relationship look like with our kids when they're pursuing relationships like this? And maybe how do we set that up for them?
Yeah, I love that we're talking about this. And if you don't mind, I'm going to answer a different question. If you would have asked me, what do I think of this woman's 16-year-old and 14-year-old kids going on dates, I would have said, I think they're too young. So I just want to put that out there. If somebody's listening to this podcast, I don't want them to think that I, as the founder of Celebrate Kids, that I think it's a good idea, especially for a 14-year-old girl to be dating. I think she's still trying to figure out who she is and what she values and what she wants out of life. So group, fun things with youth group, inviting friends over for a pizza movie night, absolutely. But this idea that they've been in relationships and gone on dates, I actually think that most 16-year-old boys are not ready for that. They're still forming too much of who they are to be healthy enough to be in a relationship. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I believe that you would agree with me on that based on how you and your wife are raising your kids. Is that true?
Yeah, I think I totally, jumped right into it. I didn't even think about those other dynamics because I'm in this other stage with older kids.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right there. I think
Okay.
that there's a reality in terms of age and maturity. And there's also things that, you're awakening things inside of kids at 14 that, might not need to be awakened yet. Like you said, group friendships, those dynamics are really important. But to get to this place where you're talking about, dating somebody that you could see yourself marrying one day or that you have a crush on, so you want to pursue that feeling or that relationship, that's a different thing for a 14-year-old versus a 17-year-old.
Okay, good. I'm glad that we got that out there. So now to the questions, which were really legit, really good questions. How do we pursue a relationship so that our kids would want to talk with us about these kinds of things? And how do we do that? So absolutely we do. And how do we do it? We listen when they're young. One of the things I say to parents all the time, when your children are young, you got to listen to the story. I know it's long and it seems so boring. You've got to listen to them talk on and on about how they skinned their knee and how it feels and what the scab is looking like and how it itches. And you might just be rolling your eyes inside your head, but ideally you don't roll it so that your sons and daughters see it. Because if you don't listen when they're young to the things that matter to them, why would they come to you when they're older with things that matter to them? So we really do set the stage. And if you're listening to me and you realize that your kids are older and you weren't available to them when they were young, you can apologize. You can say to your sons and daughters, hey, I've noticed that you don't come to me with things that I think you might be thinking about. Is it because I just wasn't available when you were younger? I'm so sorry, but I'm available now. And I would recommend you don't necessarily make a lot of excuses. My job required that I worked. You might remember that your grandpa was in the stages of death. And so I was so distracted. We don't let our kids make excuses for their choices. So I want to encourage you to simply make a statement. I'm so sorry. that you might have the impression that I don't care about the things you care about, but I really do. And I would be so pleased if you would trust me and forgive me and give me another chance. And then we walk toward them and we listen longer and we care. We ask questions that are appropriate. We don't dismiss their issues when they're young or when they're older as being unimportant and irrelevant. When I've asked kids, how do you know when you're loved? How do you know when you're cared for? One of the things they say is that the things that matter to me matter to my dad. Like he doesn't dismiss it as, oh, it's just you again. So we got to be careful of that.
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I think that's really helpful and appreciate that. When our kids are in these stages, and I'm just going to take this opportunity because, here's the reality, Dr. Kathy. I do this podcast to help me with my parenting, and everyone else just gets to listen along to the mistakes that we're making, right? But, our kids are in dating times right now, and it's filled with so much emotion and excitement, but oftentimes can be filled with some seasons of regret or disappointment. How do we talk to our kids about things when they don't go the way that they wanted them to? Maybe our son takes out a girl for a date a couple times when he's 17, which this is a real thing in our family, and comes back and, it's not reciprocated. The girl's not really interested in a relationship the same way that he is. It's something that can really, bother him as a child, but also as a parent, I can bear a little bit of his feelings of he doesn't feel good enough or what have you. And he's carrying this sense of remorse. How do we talk to our kids when things don't go the way they want them to?
Yeah, I love that you are aware of that. I'm sad for your son. It is real. And I'm proud of you for knowing it because that means that your relationship is solid. So there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is that we feel their pain, just like what you just said, Wayne. We feel their pain. What we know about even adults is that if people don't feel our pain, then we don't feel safe with them. But children in particular, we don't need to solve their problems. I think one of the things for parents, you don't have to have all the answers. Like if this is your oldest kid and you've never been through this before, you're not going to have all the answers. And, you can read an excellent book and you can even, Google search it, like, what should I do when, and you can call a best friend and you can ask your mom, how did you handle it when my first boyfriend, went bust or whatever. You can do all the research you can, but it's just life. And you just learn it by doing it and by living. But I think the most important thing to do when our kids are feeling something is that we feel it with them and we let them know that we're feeling it. I'm so sorry. And then we're just quiet. Oh, I bet that's so frustrating. And then we're just quiet. Just let them know that and you don't have to have all the answers. You could make some suggestions when they're ready. And maybe that's part of the secret sauce is that you say, I've been observing you with the girl on and off, and I have some thoughts. When you're ready, let me know. And if you've observed that your son has come across in such a way that might have been offensive to the girl, then you could say that. Like your son might not be aware or something. I'm not believing that that's what's happened here, but it is possible that that is what's happened in somebody else's situation. And then I think, what if another question would be, what could you do differently next time? And not in such a way that you're placing great blame and shame and now they have another regret that it was their fault. But if you feel like because shouldn't we all grow up from situations, right? Scripturally, we grow through our valleys. That's what we are supposed to do. James 1, 2 through 4 would say that in our hard moments, our character grows and our faith in God develops. So I think it's appropriate at the right time, in the right way, at the right place to say, hey, is there anything that you've learned from this experience? And maybe your son has learned the kind of girl that might find him more attractive. Or maybe he's learned something about himself. Did he move too fast? Did he make her feel like he was already planning a wedding when he just wanted to have a Diet Coke together?
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I think that's really great. Those are all conversations and notes that I'm going to now execute a little bit. But I wanted to ask you as we kind of close here, how should we talk to our kids about dating and relationships, especially romantic relationships and maybe relationships that we anticipate or hope turn into romantic relationships? I mean, not every kid and not everyone is going to end up, in a marriage relationship. But there are some realities here that we all, I think, like to be liked, and we like to have people that want to spend time around us, and we kind of pursue these different relationships, and some of them we want to turn romantic. How do we really talk about this well with our kids without maybe, I don't know, setting the bar for different, relationships, friendships, as being something that it might not be. How would you recommend we talk about relationships with our kids?
Yeah, it's a really big issue. I think, again, we start young. We start with little friendships at the sandbox and throwing sand at each other. Like, we start young talking about how in our family we expect you to treat people. In our family, because of God's ways, will, and word, this is how we treat people. And we expect them to listen and to follow through, and we affirm and we correct. From the time that they begin relationships, we start with siblings. Whoa, I could do a whole episode about that idea of sibling relationships. And then we talk about, relationships that we see them having with friends at school, at church, in a homeschool co-op, et cetera. I think when they're older and they're dating, one of the key things that I would talk to kids about is, what do you want for life, and what does the girl want that you're dating? So what do you want out of life? One of the things that when I'm, we're huge fans of Summit Ministries, and when I'm with the Summit students, like I just was 48 hours ago since recording this, I asked them, how do you want to live your life? And, is money important to you? Then dating somebody who spends it all might not be good for you. Is, culture important, but the girl you're dating wants to live in rural Kansas? Might not be good for you. Now, there are things you can overcome, and there are places where you compromise, and this is what you teach kids too, right? What are the hills you die on? Where do we compromise? Where do we agree to disagree? How do you hope to develop life, and how do you hope to develop as a person? And is the person you're dating supportive of those goals? And can you support the person you're dating in the direction that that person is going in? I would have those conversations.
As Dr. Kathy was talking today, I was reminded of a passage that comes out of 1 Peter chapter 2, and I'll begin reading at verse 11. Dear friends, I urge you, as foreigners and exiles, to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives, even among the pagans, that they, though they accuse you of doing wrong, may only see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. This is a passage inside of Scripture that I might reference to kind of pinpoint some advice that I've given my kids recently on dating. Well, one of the things that we've talked about a lot lately is, if you were gonna take the person that you're dating right now, and they maybe later on in life married your best friend, could that best friend and that girl come over to your house for a barbecue on a Sunday afternoon with your spouse, and it would be totally normal? That there wouldn't be any awkwardness or things that would be kind of left in the closet that people might feel like they have to air out or talk about. This is really, I think, a unique way to look at some different things in marriage. What if we viewed marriage and the ultimate kind of goal inside of those different relationships that our kids might be pursuing now, and we talk to them about how we can actually celebrate or lift up our spouse in such a way that they understand that the gifts that God has given them and the abilities and talents really are better because we have a relationship together. Because of the dynamic of our married life, we celebrate our spouse in such a way that they just shine, that they flourish. And then what if we take that and kind of boil it down, or maybe rewind it a little bit to this dating relationship? How is our dating relationship right now lifting up that other person so that they really understand the giftings that God has given them? What if our kids in their relationships really look to do that, really look to celebrate what God is doing in other people's lives? I think giving our kids a vision for marriage of that actually gives them hope inside of some of the different dynamics of what it looks like to have a dating relationship, or maybe even a crush. That, I think, can be a credible light that helps them shine and cut through some of the darkness that they might be wrestling with or juggling in with kids and dating and culture and all of those things. I hope that's an encouragement for you today. Have those conversations that Dr. Kathy talked about with your kids today and encourage them. Go pursue relationships. They're fun. They should be celebrated because God has given them to us as great gifts. So what if we took that and looked to make the other person really see that this relationship is a gift? It's helping them grow in really powerful ways. I want to thank you for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast, this daily segment, Face in the Dark. On behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender. Thanks for listening today, and we're looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.